What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Ethan's Exotic Escapades. Today we are on another cruise, but today I'm going to Key West. We're going to be doing a bunch of cool things. I'm going to hopefully get something interesting enough to have a video. But before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to join the tribe. And let's go ahead and get started. First off, here's a look at beautiful Key West from our cruise ship. We are traveling with Margaritaville this time, which is the first time I've ever traveled on a Margaritaville cruise. And then this is the other side. This is the beautiful water that is on the other side of the ship. After scoping everything out from the ship, we decide that we're going to get off of our ship and go ahead and start exploring. This is a look at what our ship looks like. And as we were walking on the pier, found all of these small little fish as well as a bunch of needlefish swimming around. And then right beside that huge school of fish was this. And this is a barracuda. I could not believe, just stepping off the ship, we already found 3 different species of fish. I was extremely surprised, but I kept on looking to see if I could find anything else. As we kept walking down the pier, I found a couple of other species of fish. There was one right there that went tucking himself into the rocks, and then there's one right there going up into the rocks as well. Next up, I kept on looking very closely to see if I could find and decipher what kind of fish were here, and I started seeing a bunch of sergeant majors, which I always see those guys. And I saw this very beautiful fish that was half yellow and half blue, and more needlefish. And then right under all of those fish was this absolutely beautiful tang. After we got off of the pier, we started walking more into town, and we found what they're known for, if you don't already know, having chickens running all over the place. So I found one of those, and that was a dove that was walking around with him. And then in the same little area, they had this little pond that had a little waterfall with a bunch of different turtles in it, and I thought that they were very, very cute. There were about 4 or 5 big turtles in here, and they all looked to be some kind of slider or painted turtle. And then around the corner, I noticed this lizard right here hiding away from me, and I did attempt to try and catch this guy. This is another one of those rock agamas, so I naturally tried to chase him and catch him, and I ended up falling and not catching him. After being downtown for a little bit, we went a little bit further away to this animal sanctuary where there was a bunch of chickens running around, and here's the father right here. Sadly, the animal sanctuary was closed, but across from it was this pier that had this bird right here standing in the water. And I started walking on the pier and noticed that there was a bunch of rocky areas that had some tide pools with a bunch of fish hanging around in them. So naturally, there was only one thing for me to do, and that was to go ahead and jump on down into the rocks and start looking for stuff. So I found these attached to this rock right here, and then I started finding some little fish. Here is a sergeant major. They had a whole bunch of different sergeant majors living all throughout this area. Right beside that is this tide pool right here that has these little guys. These are schoolmaster snappers, and I've never seen these guys before, so that was really cool. And then I started walking a little bit more through the rocks and started seeing some crabs scurrying through the rocks. I wasn't able to get a good look at what kind they were. Across from those little crabs, I spotted another one of these guys, which is what we saw earlier. They have blue on the top and yellow on the bottom. It's some kind of damsel. And I had these guys moving around too, but I'm not sure what kind of fish they were. As I kept walking through this little shallow area, I found this shell right here, which ended up having a hermit crab inside of him. So I picked him up and showed him off. He was a little bit shy. You saw him stick his feet out for a second there, but I decided to put this guy back. But before I put this guy back, I held him in the water for a little bit because I wanted to get a good shot of him coming out, and he actually started to come out of his shell, and grabbed onto a random piece of trash that was floating by, but you can see him real good now. Once I placed him back down, he started scurrying off. The next thing I found was this fish right here, some kind of damsel that was checking me out. He was very interested. He kept coming close and then going back into his little hiding spot right there. And eventually he completely disappeared into the rocks right there. I'm assuming that's probably where his family is. Right beside that dude was these fish, and there were a whole bunch of them. They had horizontal stripes. I'm not 100% sure what kind of fish these were, but they looked like they could be some kind of wrasse species. They were all clumped up together swimming around. And then here is one up close. And I kept on getting more of the same fish that I had been finding all day, and I just loved to record them. You could see that guy that just went flying past us on the screen. He was freaking out. And then I did get a quick little shot of that guy coming in and out of that little hole right there. And as I was walking through this area, I, of course, picked up any trash that I found and got rid of it and put it in the trash. I even found a couple more hermit crabs. There's one right here. I just picked them up and then put them right back down. And then I found this little dude scurrying around. This is a blue crab. He is very, very small, and he immediately buried himself. After messing with that blue crab, I got as close as I could to these two birds. One of them is one that was in the water earlier as I was walking down the pier, and I tried to get as close as I could before eventually this one flew away. Not all the way away, he just flew a little bit away from me because he did not want anything to do with me. After messing with those birds, I found another hermit crab and yoinked him up and showed him off on camera. He stuck his legs out for a second there. There he goes, starting to stick his legs out again. And then I just dropped him and let him go. The next thing I found was another crab right here, and I have no clue what kind of crab this was, but he looked absolutely gnarly. I didn't get a good shot of him because he scurried right down into those rocks right there. But after passing Mr. Krabs, I found this conch shell that actually ended up having a live conch inside of it. This is the first time I've ever found a shell that had a live conch in it. So I put him right back where he was because I didn't want to bother him anymore. And then I saw a whole school of some pretty decent sized needlefish. You can see all of them right there swimming around. These are some of my favorite fish. They look like little pencils swimming around. Once I got enough fun in the water, I found this lizard as we were walking out of the pier area. This is another rock agama, and I tried to get as close as I could, but he was just too fast. And then as we were leaving this area, I found this oyster bird, which was picking up some oysters. Then the next thing I saw was this really, really small rockagama. This is the smallest one that I've ever seen. I couldn't believe that I even saw it. It was so small. All right, made it to the next stop. We are at Cozumel again. I know it's kind of funny. I've gone on 2 cruises, but we're at Cozumel. I'm going to see if I can find anything cool or do anything a little bit different than what I did last time. So let's go ahead and check it out. Even though we are back in Cozumel, this time we are at a different area than we were last time. So here we are getting off of our boat and walking down this pier to get to our first stop. And this is where we were most of the day. This is a private beach. We rode some taxis to get here, and already I immediately fell in love with this place. Right here, as you're walking in the water, there are thousands of these minnows. So I fixed what I did wrong the last time. I've got some good underwater footage for y'all, so you can see all of them underwater. And here's another look at just how many there are. Next, I go ahead and start doing some underwater footage. So here is a sergeant major swimming around our feet right here. And I ended up finding this shell right here as we were walking around, but I just dropped it and returned it right back to the ocean. And I found this really cool rock that had a bunch of life on it. It had a bunch of little coral growing all over it. The next thing that I started recording was this area right here that had a bunch of tires, And around all of these tires were a whole bunch of these fish right here. And I'm pretty sure that these are some type of grunt, the yellowish fish right there that are swimming around. There's some species of grunt, and they were very, very beautiful. Next is this fish right there that's passing by. And then after that fish, I went ahead and started going snorkeling. And this time, I've got some very good footage. This is the first stop that we stopped at when we were going snorkeling. You can see this huge diversity clump of different species of fish. There are so many different kinds in here. There were grunts, there were sergeant majors, there were different wrasse, there were different tangs. I mean, there was just about everything in here that you could think of. There were even some angelfish that were swimming around here as well. And I just loved watching all these fish swimming around, chasing each other. There were even some damsels swimming around with those guys. And then I found this guy hiding over here behind this rock. And this is a spiny lobster. Here's a good look at him right there. He's right there under that rock. And he was just chilling out. And he was very well hidden. I almost didn't see him, but I managed to catch him. And now we are going and swimming over to our next area, which is this little rock right here that has a bunch of different coral on it. You can see a couple of tangs swimming around right there. And there's the big tang right there. He's swimming off. And he was just swimming all around. That's my favorite fish in this little area that we found. And then we started swimming off to our next area, and I recorded a couple of different corals that we passed. Here is our next stop right here. You can see right there at the bottom right, that is a species of tang swimming around. And then there's a sergeant major swimming right there. And then there's a fish right over there towards the left. Here he comes up right now, that is very good at hiding. There are also some very colorful species of wrasse swimming around, and this rock had a lot of different coral that we haven't seen yet attached to it, which I thought was very, very cool. So here is a look at this coral right here. And finally, as I'm trying to swim over here, there's that really weird looking fish that I have no clue what kind of fish that is, but he was probably my favorite fish of the day. Next up is this rock right here, and it had a couple of different grunt species swimming around, and it also had a couple of tang species swimming over here as well. Next, after that, I found this area that had a big fan coral right there at the bottom left, and there's one right there that I'm passing over right now. And here's a couple of these bigger fish swimming around. And I just really loved all of the diversity that we found. This next area had probably the most amount of fish that we had seen all day. There were all these different rock structures and all this different coral and hundreds of different species of fish all schooling around together. And I mean, I couldn't believe how many fish there were. There were so many different kinds. There were a bunch of grunts, there were damsels, there were triggerfish, there were some angelfish, there were wrasse. I mean, there was everything over here. And I started swimming over here to this big clump of coral because a lot of fish were attracted to this coral. So I wanted to get as close as I could to it because I wanted to see where they were all hiding or if I can get any of them going into their hiding spots. So I tried to get a good close-up of some of these guys right here. And every single time I watch this video back, I see more fish that I haven't seen before. And I started swimming over to this other area right here to see what else I could see. And there's another type of plant right there growing. And there's a bunch of little fish right there swimming around. And then I found this right there swimming around in the middle. That is a wrasse right there. They are called slippery dick wrasse. And then we got to this area right here, which had a very, very pretty coral that was sticking up. That's what that is in the bottom left. And there were even more fish swimming around everywhere. There were tangs, more grunts, more sergeant majors. There were some triggerfish. There's one of the really beautiful tangs that just swim over there. There they are right there. And you can see how they're moving with the water as it's moving. And there's another coral right there that we just passed over. It was amazing. After checking that structure out, we got to our final area that we looked at, which is this one right here. And it had a bunch of diverse life growing onto all of the rocks over here. There were a bunch of different fish, a lot of similar fish that we had been seeing all day, but they were still very beautiful. We can see some jacks swimming around, and then there was that guy over there swimming around. I'm not exactly sure what kind of fish he was, but all of the fish that I saw were very, very pretty. You can see these guys swimming all around the place. There's one of the schoolmaster snappers swimming around right there. And then there's a look at some of these other wrasse swimming around. We've been seeing those very colorful wrasse all day. And then down there at the bottom, there's more grunt species and some smaller yellowfish. And then after, on the way back, we were met with this eel right here. And I could not believe that I found this guy. I got as close as I could to him because I wanted to get a good up-close shot of this beautiful eel. I'm pretty sure this is a giraffe moray eel, but correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below. I got really close, and I even tapped him a little bit with my flipper so that I could see him start swimming off, and he did swim off and eventually completely disappeared. But that was an awesome find. After I finished with the snorkeling, I was greeted by this beautiful parrot right here. This is a blue and gold macaw, and I decided I was going to hold him, and I fed him, and he even gave me a little kiss on the cheek right here. And they even had a pet iguana. This is a green iguana right here that they were walking around with, so I had to pose with him as well. All right, now that I finished with the snorkeling, I'm going to start looking over here. I walked over to these tide pools, and I'm going to start seeing what I can find in these tide pools. Hopefully I find something cool. Let's go ahead and check it out. As I started, there was stuff darting around that I could not catch, but I eventually figured it out. All right, there is what I've been trying to find right there. That's some kind of goby species, and that one is bigger than the one that I was chasing. I'm going to see how close I can get before he darts away. There he is right there. Went right under this rock. I'm going to pick it up and see if I can get a shot of him. Oh, nope, he immediately darted off. But hopefully, oh, went right up into those rocks right there. And right here on top of this rock, I found this shell. I'm going to go ahead and guess that there's probably a hermit crab inside of it. Yep, there is. He's really, really small. You're probably not going to be able to see him on the camera, but he's hiding in the shell. Let's see if I can get him to come out. Yep, he's starting to come out. Nope, scared him again. Let me put this guy right back where he was. All right, next up, this is what I found next. These snails that are climbing all over these rocks, and a really, really small crab right there. You can barely see him. He's hiding right there, a hermit crab in that shell. But that's a really cool find. I'm not sure exactly what kind of snails these are. Oh my gosh, there's a crab. A crab.
Okay, but hold on. Here's a fish.
There's a crab that just went under this. I wasn't able to get that crab to come out, but hopefully y'all saw his face sticking out. There is some little bitty hermit crabs crawling around though. There's one down there, and then let's see if I can find some more. There's another guy right there and there. Wow, there's a bunch of them. They're everywhere. There's even some on top of the rocks right here crawling away, and then a whole bunch of those snails. I'm not exactly sure what kind they are, so let me know down below if you know what kind of snails these are. Over here there's a bunch of sergeant majors and some other striped fish that I'm not 100% sure on what it is. And then there's another one of those gobies right there. I'm not sure what kind that is. Let's see how close I can get to him before he starts darting off. All right, this guy's letting me get pretty close. There's two of them, actually. I didn't even see the other guy. He's camouflaged so well right beside him, hiding. And then there is another big one right over there. There's so many of these gobies. Really, really cool. Get a good look at that guy right there. I'm gonna go ahead and touch right here and see how fast they move away. Oh, darting right off. Found another really cool little hermit crab. I've never seen this kind of shell before. And he is in there. He's just really, really small. I'm gonna go ahead and put this guy back. And there's even more of the hermit crabs all over the rocks in here. You can see them everywhere in here. Wow, that is really, really cool. All over the rocks. And then more of those snails. And right here trying to hide from us is a clam. Let me see if I can dig it up really quick so I can show y'all. And this guy is actually alive, so that's really, really cool. Still got his shell closed, and he was just digging in the sand to try and get away from predators. So I'm gonna go ahead and put him back in his little hole. And right around the corner from where we just were is, well, another goby. We've been finding those guys everywhere today. And then there is a sea cucumber right here. Really, really cool. You see him moving all around in my hand to try and get out. And these guys, they don't feel like cucumbers like you would think. They really feel kind of like a big, thick slug in your hand. But that is really, really, really cool. I was not expecting to find one of these guys. But I'm gonna go ahead and let him go back into his little pocket. And as I'm getting closer to where the water is, I can see a bunch of sea urchins. There's one right there in that little hole tucking himself away. And there's a whole bunch of the sea urchins everywhere hiding themselves in little crevices. There's another one right over there hiding himself. As I'm walking through this area over here, I found this pocket with what looks like some kind of eggs. I'm not exactly sure what kind of eggs these are, but it looks kind of like these might be some kind of eggs down there. I'm not exactly sure though. Give y'all a better look. All right, we have now found the biggest goby of the day. He's right there. I'm gonna try and get a little closer. I'm sure he's just gonna dart off as soon as I get anywhere close to him, but wanted to try and attempt to get y'all a better look at, oh, and he's gone. Well, tried my best. All right, I found that crab from earlier. This is not the exact same crab, but this is the crab that got away from me earlier. Here he is right here. Get him scurrying off. Oh. Okay, buddy. He is on my shoe now. He's thinking that he's hiding, but little does he know I'm literally right beside you. Get out of here, buddy. And there he goes, scurrying away. And I found one more little bitty crab right under this rock right here. Oh, there's more than one of them. Oh, he jumped off. All right, here's one of these small crabs I was trying to get a video of earlier. He's right here. There he is. Next, I found this pretty big size conch shell that's in half. With a bunch of stuff growing all over it. I'll put that back where it came from. And then I find this guy scurrying around. Some other species of crab right there. There he goes. I know I've shown so many of these gobies, but look at how close this one is to my foot right there. I mean, this is another one of the really big ones. I'm gonna try and get my hand as close as I can. And there he goes, right there hiding in the rocks. And right here I found a molt of one of the crabs right here. So you can see and tell that this is a molt because it's a lot clearer than the crab would be, and it's hollow. So if I press down on this, it'll just disintegrate into my hand because it's not the crab, it's just the molt. And the last thing I found was this right here, which is a puka shell, or I think that's what they're called. This is what they make those puka shell necklaces out of. And it doesn't have anything inside of it. Before we left, we had to do one more thing, and that was saying goodbye to this beautiful macaw. And as we were walking out to say goodbye, he was eating himself some snacks. Alright, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you for joining me on this exotic escapade. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe to join the tribe, and I'll see you on the next one.